Alright, everybody. Unfortunately, this topic is kind of depressing, if I do say so myself. So, I'll admit that I've never been the biggest fan of the Young Turks. Like, I don't really watch the Young Turks in my free time. Sometimes if a particular video pops up in my recommended and they're discussing a topic that's particularly interesting to me, I'll give it a watch. But overall, I don't watch the Young Turks. I'm not a fan of the Young Turks. I generally think I agree with them on most things, right? And I don't, like, dislike them particularly. But overall, I've not, like, a big Young Turks guy. However, I have been aware of the fact that in the past, the Young Turks as a media group used to be a lot more conservative than they are now. Like, is that not true? Like, they were pretty right-wing back in the day, were they not? What? When? I've been watching since 2005 and they've always been left? Is that true? Because from my understanding, there's been drama somewhat recently about, like, Cenk Uyghur's positions. I think that was just Cenk. Interesting. Regardless, my understanding is that at the very least, some of the, like, hosts of TYT, which is what I mean when I say TYT, not the institution, the people there, have had some pretty cringe positions in the past. Hell, there's even those, hold on, wait. Before we go over this, I have to show you the old Hassan Piker clips from the old TYT. You're about to hear it from the Rizzler himself.
On this week's Social Guru, we cover an old classic warhorse, the let's get out of here rule. This one's been passed on for centuries and helped even the Vikings get laid. I actually lost my virginity with this rule, by the way, I'm not gonna lie. So you're in the club, you finally use the 5-second rule because you're smart now, because you follow bro tip, and you start talking to this girl, it finally leads to hooking up, and you're bold enough to grab an ass cheek and then maybe even get some hand play downstairs. What is the next move? You need to get out of there, and you need to get out of there fast. Hopefully with the girl. So you have to use these 5 magic words. Let's get out of here. You might think, wait a minute, there's no way this is gonna work. Yes, it does. Let's get out of here. It's time to get out of there, and it's time to separate her from her herd, meaning her crowd of girlfriends that are going to do their best to cock block you because they're fat and lonely. If let's get out of here doesn't work, you exchange numbers, she leaves, you guys talk later, and you continue on your conquest for the rest of the night. If the let's get out of here does work, you have successfully left the club with a hot girl, hopefully, in the cab, and you're going to your place or her place. Now, once you're in a more intimate one-on-one situation, it's much easier to get things moving forward. If you hadn't played the finger fun already in the club, now is the time to utilize those magic fingers. Take her back to your house, show off that impressive vinyl collection that no one else gives a shit about, and go into town. Once you bring them back home, it doesn't matter how impressive your Spotify playlist is, or however many stamps you've collected in 21 years of virginity. The only thing that'll matter is your teacup pig. If you don't have that, it doesn't really matter what you have.
Okay, so this is a bit? I hope so. Maybe it's a bit, but let's just say Hassan doesn't react like it was a bit when people bring it up. Okay. That said, TYT, or at least some of the people involved with it, from my understanding, they've definitely had some cringier positions in the past when it comes to politics, which is fine. I used to be cringy in the past, right? But as far as I was aware, you know, the TYT host, generally speaking, held some pretty based and true-pilled beliefs nowadays, right? And I would never expect them any day to come out with some, like, anti-trans, like, trans culture war nonsense. Usually they're the ones arguing against it, and quite well from what I've seen. I don't watch them much, but, you know, generally speaking, they argue quite well. But Anna Kasparian, one of the hosts of TYT, one of the most well-known hosts of TYT, tweeted this. It's pretty bad. I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. Now, before we get into the rest of the thread, and there is quite a bit to it, I want to say this right now. The reason why I think a lot of people who are in the trans community particularly would respond to this, especially with in a betrayed manner, right? Feeling quite betrayed, is because this argument is dishonest, inherently speaking. And it's hard to imagine that Anna isn't smart enough to know that it is a dishonest argument. You see, no one is arguing that, like, women should be called birthing people or people with the uterus or what, people who menstruate or whatever the fuck. The people arguing that someone should be called that are trans men and AFAB non-binary people. Like, if you're having a discussion about, like, reproductive rights, for example, like, I feel like that's an issue where you don't just want to make it out to seem like it's just a woman's issue, because there are a lot of trans men and AFAB non-binary people and whatnot out there that also should have access to what a lot of people on the left would just call women's reproductive rights. Now, I would get if there was some phenomenon of, like, her being called a birthing person or something that was frustrating her, but, like, this doesn't really seem to be in reference to something specific. But anyway, Mike from the Humanist Report ends up replying to this bastedly, and wait, I didn't even realize the Humanist Report follows me. Oh. Yo! Okay, I didn't know that, but that improves my day a bit. Cool, that's awesome. What a based moment. Based moment! Mike from the Humanist Report is based? Let's go. All right. Mike responds, I respect you a lot, but this notion that the mere existence of trans-inclusive terms, rarely used in casual convos, somehow degrades women comes right out of the anti-LGBT trans war on women playbook. There's a reason why they're praising you for this. And that's why you could see the conservatives in the replies saying things like right twice a day, broken clock, or whatever. Hey, Mike, you're a guy who has no clue what it's like to have your reproductive freedom taken away. The people praising her are people who want to take away her reproductive freedom. The terms she's arguing against are terms meant to be inclusive to people who aren't women that also need those reproductive rights. This is the most, like, blatantly dishonest. This can't be an honest argument she's making. She's not this stupid. But consider what it's like to have the same lawyers who fail to protect our rights turn around and call us people with uteruses. It's not inclusive if cis women hate it. But it's meant to include not just cis women. How many people are actually referring to you using this language? It must be a lot for you to air this grievance in the middle of an international hate crusade against trans people. I'm sure Ben Shapiro is retweeting you because he supports your reproductive freedom, though. Thumbs up. It's used by many major institutions, ACLU, CDC, universities, and news agencies. Yes, in medical and academic settings and legal settings when it comes to fighting for people's rights. And prominent progressive figures like AOC, and the guilt by association charge is lazy and lame? Ben Shapiro is retweeting her. The shoe on head 2? Are we dealing with a shoe on head 2? Like, no one can be this stupid. No one can be this stupid. I have seen her argue against Ben Shapiro and those that like he supports too many times to believe that she thinks that, like, Ben Shapiro retweeting her is not a red flag, that what she said and believes is a problem. She also has reactionary stances on prison. Is that true? I heard that. Yeah, that's actually, I'm pretty sure that's true. It's not guilt by association. The point is far-right fascists are using your tweet for anti-trans propaganda purposes. There's no way you're not cognizant of this. I respect you, but this is really disappointing. I genuinely don't get it, actually. Did she reply to this? No. That's where the convo ends. Seems like that's where she stopped. But, guess who ends up jumping in? Guess who ends up jumping in? Sank Weiger jumps in and says, are people really pretending that people who menstruate is a term only used in clinical settings? AOC uses it and she doesn't appear to be a doctor. If we all have agreement that it's not what you should call a woman in non-clinical settings, great, deal. Let America rejoice. Do you notice how much the goalpost has moved here, by the way? people were replying like, hey, why did you post this? This is like a weird dog whistle that conservatives post, and you posted it in the midst of an anti-trans hate campaign that's like nationwide or multinational hate campaign, and there's really no honest interpretation of what you said that could lead me to believe you're not doing this to try to get the praise of conservatives, which they're doing, and when I point that out, you get upset and defensive. So the goalpost has moved quite a bit to now, like, are we really gonna pretend that people who menstruate is a term only used in clinical settings? What? No. No one said it's only used in clinical settings. People said it's stupid to get mad about this because, one, it doesn't matter, and two, because it's a term that makes discussions about reproductive rights, both medically, legally, and academically, more inclusive to include people who it applies to that are not women. Because if you don't do this, then you're implying that, like, if you say that abortion is a women's issue, it's implying you either don't care about trans men who need to have access to it having access to it, or you think trans men are women. That's the implication, right? As a matter of fact, this person responded quite well. So you're saying trans men are women because they menstruate or give birth? Or because they menstruate or give birth? You don't understand how that's transphobic? I'm not saying that at all. I think if you want me to say that so you can be angry about it. Oh, I think you want me to say that so you can be angry about it. Go ahead, I give you permission, be angry. So a non-response, basically. He literally got pinned exactly, like, on what he's saying. Like, it's exactly what he's claiming and the implication, and that's a non-argument in response to it. So I think he got. This is really disappointing to see. During a time where the Overton window of the internet has moved so far to the right, to see some of the largest, left-wing platform having people saying shit and doing shit like this, and doubling down as well, is really frustrating. I expect this out of Shoe on Head, but not from the hosts of, like, TYT. Jesus Christ. Ugh.